Everyone formed a circle and started selecting with palms and backs of hands. After the first round, 5 had the backs of their hands up and 3 had palms up. The remaining 3 were the man with glasses, Lolita, and the scarred man. Before the second round began, I noticed a silent glance exchanged between Lolita and the man with glasses. In the first try, all 3 chose backs. In the second, all chose palms. The scarred man started to sweat. In the third try, 2 chose backs and 1 chose palms. The scarred man was the different one. "It seems you've chosen your sacrifice," the Cheshire Cat remarked inappropriately. Perhaps provoked by the cat's words, the scarred man grabbed the collar of the man with glasses and angrily questioned, "You two are a couple, aren't you? You cheated." Lolita pushed him away. "What nonsense! Show some proof." The scarred man, pointing at the man with glasses, exclaimed, "You were the one who suggested using rock, paper, scissors to choose in the first place." The man with glasses sneered, "What does that prove? Everyone saw we had no verbal communication the entire time." The scarred man shook with anger, but couldn't find any evidence or reasons to refute him. Then, the mixed-race boy, who had been silent for a while, suddenly spoke softly. "I saw it. The big brother and sister cheated." "What are you talking about, kid?" Lolita's attempt to dismiss his words seemed weak. The boy continued, "Big sister kept flipping a card in her hand before we started, over and over, front and back. That's how she and the man with glasses signaled each other, right?" Lolita's face turned pale. "I was just checking if there was any other information on the card." Realizing he had been played, the scarred man shouted angrily, "This is unfair. You two redo the game with me. Others could have cheated too. I demand we all start over." But no one agreed to his demand. "Pity the sacrifice. No one will risk getting themselves into the game again just to play with you," the Cheshire Cat said with a wide grin, echoing the thoughts of everyone present. I felt the same. In such a life-and-death situation, overflowing sympathy did no good. Ensuring one's own safety was most important. Seeing that no one was siding with him, the scarred man seemed to give up arguing. He picked up the purple potion from the table. Just as everyone sighed in relief, he suddenly rushed at the old woman without warning. "You're old and about to die anyway, so why not drink it for me?" He forcibly pried open the old woman's mouth, trying to pour the potion down her throat. The old woman, slow to react and powerless to resist, was no match for the scarred man. In that critical moment, a swift and agile figure appeared. The chubby boy twisted the scarred man's wrist with a snap. The scarred man fell to his knees, howling in pain. Amidst the chaos, the potion rolled to a corner. The man with glasses closest to it seized the moment to pick up the bottle. He uncorked it and, without hesitation, poured the liquid over the scarred man, who was grimacing on the ground. The poison entered the scarred man's mouth and nose. His skin began to dissolve, and within seconds, he went from being a whole person to a heap of blood-stained clothes. No miracle occurred. This was the result of the poisoning. At that moment, an idea to retrieve the key struck me. Don't look at me like that. He was supposed to drink the potion anyway and tried to harm others. I just helped him fulfill his obligation, the man with glasses defended himself. While he was busy justifying his actions, I grabbed the half-full potion bottle from his hand and rushed toward the Cheshire Cat in the corner. The poison seeped into its gaping mouth. The Cheshire Cat let out a dreadful wail before dissolving into nothingness. Amid the blood and viscera, the key fell to the ground. Lolita covered her eyes. The Cheshire Cat was my favorite character. It's worse seeing this than seeing a person vanish before my eyes. I picked up the key and inserted it into the lock, successfully opening the door of the small wooden cabin. Outside stood the White Rabbit, holding a pocket watch. "You're so slow. Hurry to the next place," he said. "Let me see. Are we missing someone? Looks like the Mad Hatter will need one less teacup." The White Rabbit led the way through the eerie forest, where we couldn't tell day from night. Every so often, we came across the skeletons of unknown creatures. After a long walk, he stopped. Ahead of us was an almost barren meadow, with a long dining table set with what appeared to be exquisite desserts. But upon closer inspection, the red jam on the cakes gave off a strong smell of blood and was crawling with maggots. In the second round, a player obtains a key item and wins a game reward, the White Rabbit announced. Then, glancing at the Heart Queen card in his hand, he muttered, "Oh dear, They're waking up. I must leave. I detest dealing with madmen." He vanished into the forest like a wisp of smoke. In my hand, a Heart Queen card had appeared out of nowhere. Reading the text on it, I couldn't help but frown. The Mad Hatter lifted his head from the mountain of blood-colored desserts and shook awake the sleepy Dormouse and the March Hare beside him. "Wake up, folks. We have new guests to welcome." Compared to the impeccably dressed White Rabbit, the March Hare looked particularly disheveled and frightening. Her fur and clothes were stained with tiny blood spots, and her bloodshot eyes scanned each of us. She climbed onto the table and loudly announced, "Welcome, new friends, to the Mad Tea Party. Survive to the end, and you'll get to taste the freshest, most delicious afternoon tea." The March Hare's words hinted at the danger ahead. This round would likely involve survival. Around the dining table on the grass were 2 concentric circles painted with red paint. The smaller circle had a diameter of about 10 meters, and the larger one about 20 meters. Following the March Hare's instructions, everyone stood outside the smaller red circle, forming a ring. The Mad Hatter, singing an eerie nursery rhyme and clapping to the beat, led us in circles around the table. "Who killed Cock Robin?" "I," said the Sparrow. "With my bow and arrow I killed Cock Robin." "Who saw him die?" "I," said the Fly. "With my little eye I saw him die." "Who took his blood?" "I," you said. The horse singing abruptly stopped. The Mad Hatter and the March Hare immediately stepped over the red circle and returned to their places, elegantly picking up their teacups and taking a sip. Everyone quickly followed suit, finding chairs to sit in. I sniffed the red, translucent liquid in the teacup. It smelled like diluted blood. There were 10 tea guests, but only 9 seats. "Who hasn't taken a seat?" the Mad Hatter asked. It turned out our friend the Dormouse was still asleep on the lawn. The Mad Hatter flashed a sinister smile. He plucked a silver fork from a skull-shaped cake and hurled it to the ground, narrowly missing the Dormouse. The fork landed beside the Dormouse, startling him awake. Blood was not shed, but the atmosphere grew tense as we realized the severity of the Mad Hatter's games. The Mad Hatter picked up the Dormouse by its tail and stuffed it into his hat. The hat on his head began to devour the Dormouse, making greedy, smacking sounds. "Just a small appetizer," the Hatter said. "Don't worry, the real afternoon tea is coming up next." The March Hare pushed a chair under the table, causing the table to shake with the sound of wood being chewed. While the Mad Hatter sang his nursery rhyme, the tea guests were required to move outside the smaller circle. When the rhyme paused, they had to find a seat within the circle. If any guest entered the smaller circle during the song, they had to accept a penalty. For this round, guests had to move outside the larger circle when the rhyme paused. Each seat could only accommodate 1 guest. If there were no seats left, guests couldn't resort to violence to take one. If a guest voluntarily left their seat, others could sit down. Any guest not seated within a minute after the rhyme ended would become the afternoon tea for the remaining guests. The second round of the Mad Rhyme began. The Mad Hatter started singing again. The first round was just a tutorial to demonstrate the rules. Now, with only 8 chairs and 9 guests, 1 player was bound to be eliminated. The Mad Hatter and the March Hare were unlikely to be the ones left out, so staying close to them would lower the chances of getting a chair. I quickened my pace to distance myself from them, but my actions drew the attention of others, causing the order to break down, and the pace of the circle began to vary. "Who made his shroud?" "I," said the Beetle. "With my thread and needle, I'll make the shroud." "Who will dig his grave?" "I," said the Owl. "With my pick and shovel, I'll dig his grave." As the Mad Hatter's voice trailed off, the man with glasses reacted swiftly, making a dash for the table. But he didn't anticipate that the Mad Hatter had merely paused for a second. The singing resumed immediately, meaning the man with glasses had broken the rules by running early. He had no choice but to adhere to the rules and reluctantly walked to the large circle, 10 meters away from us. It was almost certain he would be the loser of this round. As the Mad Hatter's singing continued, "I'll dig the grave with my pick and shovel. Who will be the parson?" "I," said the Rook, "with my little book." When the Mad Hatter truly paused his chant, I was the first to dash forward, heading for the closest chair. An elderly woman behind me nearly fell, but I managed to help her steady herself, and she also secured a seat. Unsurprisingly, the last one standing was the man with glasses, far away from us at the starting point. He looked helplessly at the fully occupied table and turned to Lolita, stammering for help. "If it weren't for me helping you last round, you'd have ended up like the scarred man. You can't be so ungrateful. Give me your seat, please." Lolita turned her head away, clearly unwilling to engage with him. Seeing her steadfastness, the man with glasses tried a last-ditch effort with reverse psychology. "Listen up, everyone. Don't trust this woman. She'll make an alliance with you 1 second and betray you the next. And about the Heart Queen card, I have more information." Before he could finish, the Mad Hatter's fork pierced his throat. Lolita remained expressionless, unfazed. The Mad Hatter picked up a knife and swiftly decapitated the man, stuffing his head into the hat. The hat devoured it, spitting out a few bones and the man's glasses. The third round of the deadly nursery rhyme began, now with one less seat. Tension mounted as I moved cautiously within the group. Suddenly, Lolita appeared behind me and whispered, "Sister, if I'm not mistaken, the Heart Queen card you hold reveals the end of each rhyme, right?" My body tensed, and a surge of panic set in. Just then, I felt a forceful shove, pushing me into the smaller circle while the Mad Hatter was still singing. I had violated the rules. Lolita flashed an innocent smile. "Oops, my mistake, but the rules didn't say you can't push someone, right?" Thanks to her, I found myself in the same position as the man with glasses from the previous round, standing outside the large circle according to the rules. Lolita had guessed correctly. The Heart Queen card I held had scattered lines of verse, all from the nursery rhyme, "Who Killed the Robin?" From the first round, I understood these lines signified the end of each of the Mad Hatter's verses. That's how I had been able to react first in the second round and claim a seat. But Lolita had seen through my advantage. "Who will bear the pall?" "We," said the lark. "With our shovels and spades, we will bear the pall." "Who will sing a psalm?" "I," said the thrush. "As I sit on a bush, I will sing a psalm." "Who will toll the bell?" As soon as the word bell was uttered, I mustered all my strength and dashed toward the table, but starting nearly 10 meters away left me last to reach the table. Lolita, with a graceful flick of her skirt, calmly took her seat. The chairs were now all occupied, and I had less than a minute to find one. The extra chairs had been consumed by the table. Sweat poured down my face as I struggled to suppress my fear. I kept drumming my fingers, estimating that about 15 seconds had passed. The forest's dark depths were unknown and frightening. Could I escape into it and survive? That's all for the second part of the story. Please kindly stay tuned for the final part. Same time tomorrow. Thanks for listening.